Good afternoon. Every little, or rather, every trickle makes a puddle. My mother, who I consider to be a woman of great wisdom, taught me one cocoa full basket, and every mickle makes a muckle. But she did not tell me that every trickle makes a puddle, as I imagine that she has never had a roof that leaked like a sieve. And so when that happened, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that every trickle does make a puddle. Have you ever looked at people and think, boy, oh boy, they really have it made? Have you? All of us are guilty of this misconception and losing sight of perspective. As a positive and personable person that most people think I am, I too fall prey to this type of negative thinking. There were periods in my life when I just could not understand why God was answering everyone else's prayer and talking to everyone else so that they were able to walk and say, God told me so, and God told me this, and God told me that. But not me. I was praying, I was talking, I was asking, but nothing. No words came. I didn't hear anything. So the Nancy drew in me. I'm a detective. As a journalist, I tend to have a very interrogative spirit. So I started talking to people because I wanted to find out exactly what was the formula they were using to hear from God. So I asked them, was it a special set of words you were using? Or was it a special time of the day that you were praying? Or was it a special prayer position that people say if you got down on your knees or something. So I wanted to find out exactly how they were praying to be able to get these answers from God. Well, I found the answer. Plus, I got the bonus. These real stories that you heard here today are from real people in real situations, and they are real motivation. They form the backdrop of glass houses. Like Elijah's story that you heard the scripture Jordan quoted for the sin story, the eviction spell, life and our destiny is never straight. It takes twists and turns to get to your real success or destiny. I figured if I was feeling this way, if I was having this struggle, then more than likely my neighbor, my co-worker, my church brethren, the stranger millions of miles away was also having this struggle. So like Einstein, the idea to put all of these stories that I spent almost a year gathering into a book became my new desire and focus, and hence Glass Houses was born. Why Glass Houses? The name Glass Houses resonated with me because I think Peter Tosh's song, If You Live in a Glass House, Don't Throw a Stone, says it best. It says, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. And if you can't take blows, brother, don't throw blows. Harm no man. Let no man harm you. Do unto others as you would do to you. We are living, breathing glass houses, as our lives, as I've come to recognize, are reflections of each other's. When you hear a story, as for myself, each time I spoke to someone and they shared their story with me, I saw parts of their story, their lives, pointing back at me, because I too had an experience similar to what they had already or may be going through. So glass houses, I believe, was a very, very fitting name for the devotional. I'm going to focus today on the Cindy story, because when I heard the Cindy story, I heard my story, and I heard the Elijah and God story. Elijah prayed and asked God to hold the rain. God did. However, the law of the universe teaches that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Firstly, how much food can a raven really carry in its beak? We're talking about a raven feeding a grown man. We can relate to the consequences of no rainfall, as NWC is unable to supply water when the dams are dry. It was the same in the days of Elijah. His brook ran dry. This was no surprise to God, as he had already pre-provisioned another place to sustain him. However, the blessing was not clear-cut. Elijah had to convince the poor widow that it was wisdom to take her last meal and give to him first. Even though she had prepared to make matters worse, the widow's one child died, and Elijah felt responsible. Even though she had prepared for this fate, but in her plans, she saw both of them dead, not she being left behind to mourn the passing of her son. As I read this story, I thought this was certainly not the 5-star hotel or the 3-star meal, the 3-course meal that most of us would identify with as a blessing. I thought to myself, Elijah had a strong connection with God. Elijah was a powerful man because God was with him. So why, if God is going to give Elijah a blessing, would it not be a straight out, clear-cut, 5-star blessing? As I thought about it, I began to see the Elijah story as a story that I needed to use, we need to use to adjust our expectations and our perceptions of God and how He blesses us. Because of our wrong perception, a lot of times we miss God's blessing because we are expecting them to come in a very flashy way, and they don't. Elijah is my glass house. As it made me realize why I thought God was not answering my prayers. It also made me realize just how ungrateful I was. It made me realize just how many times I had given the enemy praise instead of giving God the glory. Every cloud has a silver lining, and I, like many of us, choose to focus on the cloud and miss the silver lining, which causes us, by extension, to miss out on God's goodness. You see, I had prayed and asked for things, and when God delivered, I endured sorrows as a result of the blessing. In November 2007, I cried like a baby and questioned God's idea of a blessing when I bought my first home. Picture this. Months before, in July, on the day of the viewing, I was praising God for answering my prayer to get the right size house in the right area at the right price. You see, I was desperate at the time. In June, we had gotten notice, and I, like Cindy, had to move. We needed to find a place in time so that my daughter could go to school in September. In my financial wisdom, I reasoned, if I'm going to pay rent in a new city, why not buy a place and pay a mortgage? And so I put a lot of pressure on myself to find the perfect place in time for school. All right, now fast forward to October when I got the keys for the first time. By this time, the sale was in progress, but not finalizing quick enough. So the landlord decided to rent us the premises in the meantime. I suffered the worst case of buyer's remorse. When I opened that door and pushed it open and I walked in that place and saw the dump, I could not see how I made the decision to ever buy that place. I could not see how I was ever going to live there. The place, not exaggerating, was a dump. I sat in the middle of that place and wept. I questioned God. How come you allowed me to make such a bad investment with the limited resources I had? The disappointment hit hard. We were now very excited because we were renting a dingy hotel because we had to move from the place and we had gone into the new city, and in transition renting a dingy hotel for $1,500 a night, and some nights I couldn't even afford that $1,500, so we had to sleep in my car. So we were excited to get the key because we said to ourselves, even if it means sleeping on the floor until we can set ourselves straight, it was better than the situation in which we were currently. We had used up all the resources to pay the deposit, to relocate, to put stuff in storage, and to pay the fees that we needed for the mortgage. So we had no choice. We had to get down to it. Weeks later, with a whole lot of elbow grease and several coats of paint, my perspective changed. I saw the fruition of the vision God gave me the day of the viewing. My mindset started to change. The place looked perfect once more. I converted that one bedroom into a stylish two-bedroom, and today I am proud to say I am giving God the praise. When it rains, though, it pours. In November, I woke up to a wet bed and water dripping on me. The rains had started. The roof was like a sieve. Before long, the house was filled with puddles. I questioned God once more. How could He allow me to buy this Pandora's box? What next? I was broke. And we were barely surviving. As a matter of fact, ends were not meeting. Today, I appreciate and can totally relate to the phrase, blessings in disguise. In the middle of my struggles, feelings of rejections by the bank, and disappointments with God, I was determined to find a way. But God, you see, had already pre-provisioned a way for me. I was knocking on doors, and all of them seemed shut tight. Until one day, Camille from JMMB says, I will trust you. I like your spirit. You don't meet the requirements, but we will take a chance on you. We must remember when we pray. Sorry. I'm sorry. We must remember when we pray that God reserves the right to act according to his will. On God's time, the right people and the right place will manifest for us to achieve the right desires. Desire plus sow equal reaping. We must step out in faith and knock on doors when we have a desire to achieve something in life. Cultivate habits to look out for the silver linings in the clouds of your life's struggles. Our blessings will sometimes come wrapped up in packages of challenges. I have traced every major success to my life to a major challenge. Never stop praising God in your times of sorrow or success so you can build a relationship with him like Elijah did. The Cindy story, like mine and yours, depicts a period of struggles. She was evicted, and many times she swore there was an eviction spell on her life. How could there not be when the same fate kept plaguing her over and over again? In the end, though, she was happy with the reward of owning her own home. However, people will see your success, but never sees the struggles or the challenges you face behind those successes. Like Cindy, many of us has bought into this mental slavery of believing we are cursed and fighting evil. This negative perspective causes us to lose sight of God's power to use every disappointment as an appointment to set up a blessing. It is human to succumb to our struggles, but as children of the Most High God, we must keep him first and center in our sorrows and our successes. Romans 8:28 says, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Elijah's brook dried up. The widow was poor. The widow's son died. With Elijah's power and favor from God, you would not expect these hiccups. Even though he himself questioned God, he stayed in obedience. He cried out to God, and he took action of stretching himself upon that child 3 times until God heard his voice and restored the child. Today, when I look at the big picture of my life, I now see clearly how the daily tricklings of the little blessings that God bestow on me each day, and not the trailer load or the bow-breaking blessings that we have come to expect, adds up to the wonderfulness that is my life. I, like Elijah, am a living testimony that every trickle does make a puddle. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Let us continue to look for a silver lining in the clouds. We'll now have an interpretive dance by Akeem Hutchinson.